And with that, we'll kick it off. So welcome to Solving Challenges with Design Thinking. It's an exciting topic. We're happy to have everybody here. So just to get into it, my name is Jake Toohey, and I'm joined by my colleague, Mike Kovac. We are both senior digital consultants at Adage. And so today we are talking about design thinking, what it is, why it's important, how do you collect meaningful audience insight, and then talking about making your audience the star of the brand story using the insights that we found. And then, like I said, we'll have some time for Q&A. So we're talking about design thinking, and we'll start with, what is it? Tim Brown, who is the recent former CEO of IDEO, who has been a champion of design thinking for the past couple of decades, he defines design thinking as a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements for business success. And if we simplify that definition, it's focusing on understanding the people we're designing for and creating experiences based on what they actually want and need. And it's also important to note that design thinking, it's not about pushing pixels. And what we mean by that is it's not graphic design, it's not user interface design. It's just using the design tools for innovation. So I'll start with the pillars of design thinking, which are empathize, or empathy for people we're designing for, understanding what's important to them, defining and redefining the challenges we're facing so that we can come up with solutions, ideating, and this is where the innovation starts, creating ideas that we can begin to build out, and then prototypes give us a chance to create iterations of the solution that we can improve on. And then we have to test. So we put the prototypes into test mode, we tweak until we've got it right. So in other words, we empathize, or we understand our users and their needs. We challenge the assumptions that we already have and have traditionally done things. Then to redefine the problems based on what we know and create innovative ideas or alternative strategies for what we've always done. And then, like I said, finally, we prototype and iterate on those prototypes after we've tested our ideas and have meaningful results to act on.
So you might be asking yourself, is design thinking just another MarTech buzzword, or why should I even care? And to answer this question, I think it really becomes apparent when we start to look at the technological advances that have led to the business world changes, all while consumer expectations are changing at the fastest rate in history. So there's a point in time not too long ago where there was a need to own every single product that you see here. And now all these can fit comfortably in our pocket on with our phones. So with this in mind, let's take a look at how design thinking concepts have led to innovation in some of the things that we do in our everyday lives. So think about how you used to have to buy a pair of glasses. You need to have to find some time on the weekend, drive to a lens crafter's, probably at a mall, talk to a sales rep, try the glasses on, make sure they fit before making the purchase there. So not the most enjoyable experience, but a great opportunity here for design thinking to help lead us towards innovation. So 2010 comes along, Warby Parker comes out with a great business model that helps to innovate and change how people are buying glasses. They would ship 5 pairs of glasses to you. You could try them on in the comfort of your own home, find the one that looked the best. A successful innovation, I'd say. But innovation didn't stop there, and Warby Parker continued to listen to their customers and their evolving needs throughout this experience. So they took it a step further and made the glasses buying experience even easier for people. Their AR app allows you to select a pair of frames, see what they look like on your face, buy it right there on the spot, anytime, anywhere. Again, this is a great example of innovation, then following it up with iteration and improvements.
So another great example is the furniture industry. And no one ever thought that anyone would buy furniture without going to the store and sitting on a couch or seeing what a table looked like before they bought it. But that assumption was challenged in a big way by Wayfair. Wayfair has revolutionized how people buy furniture, and they've really taken it to another level with their own AR app. As you can see, you can see what a table looks like in the middle of your living room. You can see how it fits. You can check out maybe how some new lights might fit on your wall, all from your mobile device. And of course, you can then buy the items right from the app with a couple of clicks. So we used to talk about the quote-unquote digital audience, but that really isn't accurate because these days it's simply your audience. And we need to make sure things are simple, enjoyable, and engaging for them. And that starts with understanding what they actually want.
So let's think about your organization for a second and what your org chart probably looks like. So everyone has sales and marketing team, HR, IT department. If you're an association, you probably have an advocacy group. If you're a performing arts organization, you have a ticketing department. And what happens too often is we see these departments, they turn into silos. So here at Adage, we look at things from a web perspective. And oftentimes we're seeing these silos make their way onto the website because this is how the organization views itself. And your website is your most valuable asset. It's the front door for customers and prospects that are coming into your organization. And traditionally, it's your company's most engaged channel as well. So if you're an association that's on this webinar, this website might look familiar to you. You can see how these silos have transferred over to the site. And this really starts to beg the question, with such a massive opportunity to engage here, why are we organizing our websites by department as opposed to the areas that your members or your customers are most interested in seeing? The excuse we hear more times than not, it's just the way it's always been done. But if we think about design thinking, what we should do is change our perspective and put the audience first. So it's clear that we've been looking at this all wrong. People don't care about your organization's structure. They just want to find what's most interesting to them. How do we find out what's most interesting to them? We need to start by listening.
So now we want to talk about getting the audience insight that you need. And that's the empathy piece of design thinking. And when we're empathizing with our audience, we need to be both qualitative and quantitative. And all that really means is qualitative is the story and quantitative is the numbers. And I want to talk about how Netflix approaches the story versus the numbers. And as most people know, Netflix started out sending DVDs to you. You could watch them and then pop them back in the mail when you're done. And then they offered streaming and DVDs by mail. So as they saw the shifts move more and more towards streaming, they wanted to give the best recommendations they could to their subscribers. And they held a contest to see if anyone could beat their recommendation algorithms with $1 million prize to the winner. Someone actually beat it. They got their $1 million, and what did Netflix do with that algorithm? They threw it in the trash with no plans to ever use it. And Reed Hastings, the co-founder and CEO, said it was because the increase in accuracy didn't seem to justify the engineering effort that was necessary. So they took the qualitative approach and asked people to rate movies. An example I've heard him give is the difference in ratings they saw with movies like Schindler's List against The Do-Over with Adam Sandler and David Spade. And everyone would rate Schindler's List 5 stars, and The Do-Over would get 2 or 3. But when they looked at things quantitatively, they saw that more people actually watched The Do-Over more. That's because when you only ask people, you get their aspirational self, but watching how they actually behave gives you revealed values. So they realized that, sure, they still want to have deep, intense movies like Mudbound, but they need to have goofy shows like Nailed It, where a bunch of home chefs fumble around the kitchen. Because sometimes, if not most of the time, people just want to relax. And a great quote I heard Reed Hastings had was that they got candy and they got broccoli because a good mix is a healthy diet.
When we're looking at this type of data, it's important that we need to remember we have to stay data informed, not data driven. Because being data driven, it misses areas like intuition, storytelling, and the emotional perspective for how customers want to engage with you. Most companies have demographical data on their customers and prospects, things like age, gender, their purchase history, all fairly easy to gather and come by. But using this data alone to make decisions will leave us missing a key component of this story. We need to get the sentiment data, or what we refer to as storytelling data. So how do we get this data? We have to ask customers and prospects the right questions, and then we have to listen. So slight tweaks to the questions that you can ask really make a big difference. So instead of asking someone, do you buy from us? Are you a customer? You have to dig deeper. Ask them why they buy. Why are you a member? Why do you contribute? Why do you donate? Why do you renew or not renew? Why do you attend our networking events or our conferences? Or why do you come to one of our shows and buy a ticket and see our spaces?
So how do we get the information we're talking about? So our advice would be to use these 4 channels for researching your audience: conferences, user interviews, workshops, and online surveys and polls. Conferences are a great place to get a lot of insight quickly. Typically, there will be a large group of people you can talk to. You can do quick 5 to 10 minute mini interviews, so it's relatively fast. And doing research at your conference will often build goodwill with your customers or members. They like to know what you're doing, and when they see that you value their feedback, it makes them feel good.
The next one is online surveys. These are one of the most open ways that you can receive feedback. Remember, your website is your organization's front door. So these are often pretty easy to implement, relatively cheap. It allows for a very quick feedback loop. You can ask people questions like, did you find what you're looking for? Or it even gives us the chance to dig deeper and find out what they're looking for when they come to the site.
So another way to get even deeper insight is user interviews. And typically this does mean a larger time investment, but it allows us to get more in-depth to business problems, like how the organization affects their life, or what they think of the membership model. And one example of some insights we've heard in these kind of interviews is a member who was a partner at a law firm and was only eligible for an associate membership at their association. And attorneys who have reached the partner level had a real problem with only being allowed to be an associate. So you can find out if you're even speaking your members' language or if there's a need for change. So you're getting one-on-one perspective without any outside noise, and there'll be less ambiguity than if you only had a few minutes to talk at a conference. And it also would be our recommendation to use a third party for these kinds of interviews because you tend to get more honest feedback than if an executive or a VP was conducting interviews.
And finally, workshops. So you should be holding internal workshops with as many departments as possible in the room. This is a great way to start breaking down some of those silos that we had talked about earlier and lead us to uncovering ways that we can innovate as an organization. So, think about how easy it is for someone to buy from you, or if you're an association, think about how easy it is or how hard it is for someone to renew their membership or sign up for a membership today. How many clicks does it take for someone to do that?
So think about how easy it is to sign up for Netflix. And that's how easy it should be to sign up for your organization or buy a ticket. If you look at the homepage of Netflix right here, it tells you the plan immediately. You have to understand the emotional need to be able to address it with an innovative solution. People are paranoid about being auto-enrolled into something. They don't want to sign up for something that they'll get billed for the rest of their life. And Netflix knows that you're going to be hooked before you receive the renew notification, so they've got it all planned out.
So let's take a look at a couple examples of design thinking and how it's been applied in the real world. First one we're going to look at is actually an industry that is not following design thinking concepts or might be in the process of trying to catch up with traditional cable companies. So the scene that you see here, it's becoming more and more the norm in living rooms across America with the cord being cut, as you can see there in the bottom right-hand corner. And in fact, since 2012, the number of TV subscribers has steadily been declining, while cable companies have found other areas or ways to bring in revenue. They are missing an important piece of customer feedback. People don't want to watch 500 channels anymore. They want to be able to be able to pay for and watch the 12 that they watch all the time. Has anyone ever tried to call a cable provider and see if that's even possible? Probably ended up with a scene looking like this. So for years now, cable companies have ignored what their customers want, and a prime opportunity to use design thinking to help create a better experience. That's really the reason why more and more people are cutting the cord and opting for packages that gives them exactly what they want.
So another great example of design thinking in action is of a Detroit area condo developer. So this group decided to build condos that were targeted at downsizers. So it could be empty nesters, retirees, divorcees, but they focused on high-end features to attract these buyers. Things like granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, bay windows. And they got a lot of interest and a lot of people coming to see the units, but they were not getting the sales they were looking for. And they didn't know why, and they looked at things like the bad weather or the bad economy, Are those the factors, or maybe underperforming salespeople? So what they did is they brought in an innovation consultant, and they started trying to figure out some other strategies for how to sell these condos. The consultant talked to people who actually bought condos, and they found a common theme. And that sentiment was, as soon as I figured out what to do with my dining room table, I was free to move. And that sentiment enabled them to redefine the problem. The developer realized they were not in the business of building homes. They were actually in the business of moving lives. And the dining room table represents an emotional connection to the home they were leaving, and it represents family. It represents having friends over for dinner parties, doing your homework with children at that table, spending holidays with the family. So they looked at the layouts of the condos, and what they did was they moved some things around, and they made room for the dining room tables. And what they saw was a 25% increase in sales, and they were actually able to raise prices even in a down market. So using design thinking, they understood and empathized with their target customer and innovated, which led to major success. So finally, we want to talk about using the things we learned with design thinking practices to make your audience the star of the show. I recently had the pleasure of hearing Todd Unger, who's the Chief Transformation Officer at the American Medical Association, speak. And he said when he got the job at the AMA, he was contacted by a physician who was a non-member, and he wanted to give him a piece of his mind about the AMA. So Todd flew out only for a quick lunch with the doctor to hear what he had to say. And what he heard was the AMA doesn't know what it's like to be a doctor, and he wasn't a member because they do nothing to serve the profession. And after that conversation, he realized the most important thing that had to change was that members needed to believe in the mission. Benefits and incentives are not enough. They're really just nice to haves or add-ons. One that they had in the past was they had to deal with Mercedes-Benz, and all the members got discounts on cars. But it didn't help membership because people would sign up and then cancel once they got their discounted Benz. So they needed to understand the members' lives, and they needed to empathize. What they found was that a lot of members had tons of student debt. They were constantly in fear of being sued. And what they really felt was powerless. And this led to an extraordinary amount of physician burnout. So we needed to understand why a doctor would even join the AMA and what value they could provide. And he asked, what are people even interested in looking at? He heard a lot of things, but he heard this was a primary sentiment, was that they go to the AMA website for information like the New York Times or the Washington Post. So what he did was he turned the website into a publishing platform, which now gets over 1 million unique page views a month. And then he pointed out this article, which is called Physician Burnout, It's Not You, It's Your Medical Specialty. And he said this is the primary factor in doubling membership growth. He was very clear that it was membership growth, not membership as a whole. But the next thing he did is he started this campaign called Membership Moves Medicine. And he wanted members to feel empowered and allow them to tell their story. So he got a celebrity photographer to come in and do photo shoots with tons of members. And he wanted to give them or put them in power poses. He wanted them to be able to tell their stories, to make these doctors feel like they mattered. And there was actually a great video that he showed, and it's on their site, that one of the members that was participating said, when I see myself in that photo, I feel powerful. There's also a member spotlight with profiles and videos, all aimed at making the member the star of the show. And the last example we'll talk about is the American Academy of Pediatrics Why I Vax campaign for National Immunization Awareness Month. And they created a video where they interviewed pediatricians, and they were able to tell their story about why they vaccinate their own children, why their parents should be, or the patients should be vaccinated. And the video was made for social sharing, but they also created these stories that they were able to share. It included quotes from pediatricians, general statements about immunization, because what they're fighting against is a lot of bad information that's being shared. But this allowed members and their parents to share their story. Another way they make their members the star of the show is with all the content they produce. Things like Ask a Pediatrician videos, webinars, how-to videos. It's all members sharing their story. And so to wrap things up, let's just take a look back at the 5 pillars that we talked about at the very beginning of this. Again, the 5 pillars of design thinking. We need to empathize. We need to start with our users. We need to understand our users and customers, who we're speaking with. We need to define what the problems they're facing. We also then need to redefine the problems that they're facing
And that leads us into the process of ideation. So through prototyping and getting solutions out there quicker to market, we can continue innovation, again, making our customer, our user, our member the star of the show, and continuing to make that experience more enjoyable, more simple, and more engaging for them.
But of course, if you'd like to talk to us about applying design thinking to your organization or anything else, you can certainly contact myself or Mike. I'm Jay Tui at adagetech.com. Mike is M. Kovac at adagetech.com. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Hope you got something out of it, and we'll end it there.
Thank you.